So, like many of us, I watched The Social Dilemma by Netflix this weekend, and it struck such a deep chord with me as somebody who's been creating content in the tech industry for over a decade now. And I want to share some of my experiences with you. In 2007, I was hired into a company to create content for online networks. This was around the time that Facebook was just becoming big as well. And I realized very quickly that the name of the game was not quality content that could actually help people, but it was more about meeting the metrics. In order to gain more page views, instead of writing an in-depth article, you'd put together a 10-page slideshow. 10 reasons to visit New York in the summer. 10 ways to communicate with your spouse. 10 ways to get a break if you're a mother. Now, what's interesting about a 10-page slideshow is that it's more images and it's less actual content, which frankly anyone could do. And that's exactly what was happening. It came to a point where we had 23-year-old interns writing articles on how to be a good mother. And this was the content on the receiving end that we moms were reading and taking to heart. In 2008, I had a dream to build a global travel platform for parents. I had children of my own, and I was traveling all over the world, and I wanted to make travel more accessible for parents. The feedback I constantly got was I need to write for SEO. Now, the problem is when you're creating a travel site writing for SEO, you end up writing about New York, London, and Paris, because that's where people are going, or Disneyland. And that was great. I love New York, Paris, and Disneyland, but I really did want to make it a global platform. So if you go to momobot.com, you will see guides to cities like Moscow and Lima in Peru and more obscure places around the world, because why shouldn't we put out content like that? Well, because it's not optimizing for the search engine. Fast forward to Kamna Live, and I'm going to share with you my experiences building a following on Instagram. So the first thing you're told is you have to post regularly, 2 to 3 times a week. Doesn't matter what you have to say. It could be about your mundane breakfast, it could be about your bad hair day, it could be about your good hair day. Just put something out there. The second thing they tell you that matters is engagement. What does that mean? That means you socialize, because it's a social network, with people on the internet, and they in turn socialize with you. Now, what ends up happening is, for the level of socialization that's required, most of us don't have that kind of time. So I hire a consultant, somebody that goes off to other pages and puts in comments like, wow, amazing, true that, amen, clapping emojis, and in turn that helps bring up my engagement. Is it quality engagement? I don't think so. Since I know what's going on, am I taking comments on my page seriously? Not really. It kind of dilutes the nature of the interaction, right? Our brains are already wired to receive these likes and comments as a little bit of a dopamine hit, so we keep coming back for that behavior. And you, on the other end, are scrolling repeatedly because that's what you're programmed to do. And you're also checking in on your notifications because somebody new has tagged you or liked you, has commented on your post. To be an influencer, you have to post numbers. You don't really have to show how many people's lives you have influenced, for good or for bad. And that's really something to think about. The other interesting thing is that the algorithm gets confused if you post about too many different things. So I'm a singer and a dancer, but I also like to talk about a certain number of things. But I've constantly been told, no, you can't do all of that on the same thing. You have to have a separate account for your singing and a separate account for your dancing and then a separate account for your show. Because that's what the algorithm understands. But human beings are not unidimensional like that. We're much more complex. I don't want to do just one thing. So when a human being looks at me, I'm enriched because I have all these various dimensions. When the algorithm looks at me, I'm diluted. So what do I have to do in order to actually succeed? I have to bring myself down to this one dimension. That's not human. Do you know that on Instagram, you get rewarded for spending more time on the app? So your stuff gets shown more just because you're on it more, even if you're not doing anything. And it means that we're all in a constant race to put out more content. Look at the entertainment business. Every actor has his or her own profile. Every show has its own account. Every network has its own account. I mean, at some point, aren't they all saying the same thing? Do we really need all of that? Just like advertisers on the other end of these apps are competing for our attention, we're competing for our own attention. Consuming all this all day long shuts down our own ability to communicate with ourselves, to hear our own inner dialogue. For many of us, we didn't grow up with social media. We've been dealing with it for the last 20 years or so. For kids, though, that were born with smartphones in their hands, the research is showing without doubt that their brains are really getting rewired. They have more attention deficits, higher levels of depression and anxiety, lower self-esteem, more self-harming behaviors. I mean, how much more proof do we need? And what happens to family time? When I'm out in a new place with my kids, the first thing I'm doing is scanning for grammable moments. What does that do to my ability to be present, which is my current quest, right? Because that's the path to nirvana. It completely destroys it. And what happens to kids who constantly see their parents on cell phones? My kids have said to me, "Mom, you're on your phone all the time. There's no way I can call them on it." Here's the crux of this issue. We created these systems that have gotten so good at what they do that they're doing them at our expense. They're rewarding us for specificity, for time spent, for people reached, for unidimensionality. And our brains like the reward and keep activating more and more of the same behavior. The problem is that the human brain, though, has not evolved very far from our hunter-gatherer ancestors, only 8 generations or so ago. So what that means is there are still certain elements that are key to our well-being that are not factored into this social media paradigm. Like, for instance, moving, not having a sedentary lifestyle, vitamin D, being outside in the sun, and real human contact. Why the fuck are you getting advice from influencers on Instagram and from memes? You don't know them, they don't know you. Go out and find people who do. Talk to friends, talk to family, talk to a therapist, get help. Social media does not substitute for real human contact. We're hearing this over and over and over again. Don't take my word for it, you don't know me. Tune into yourself if you still know how. Don't get me wrong, I love technology. It has enabled some of the most amazing, unthinkable things, and especially in this crazy pandemic time, it has allowed us to collaborate, it has allowed us to communicate, it has allowed us to create. But there is a place for it. So how do we put it in its place? Awareness is the first step. Wake up and be conscious of what it is programmed to do. Be aware of what you consume. Consume smarter, consume better. Don't reward superficiality, reward depth. Follow fewer people, follow quality people. We have timestamps on articles telling us how long it'll take them to read. Do you really not have enough time to go deep into something that you think you care about? You really need a 2 or 3 minute soundbite? The other thing to do that is easier said than done, I'll admit. Put the fucking phone down. Lock it up. Hold each other accountable. Like any addiction, it'll hurt at first, but you'll be much better for it. As for me, as a creator, I will commit to the following. No more frivolous shit just because the algorithm needs me to stay active. If it's not substantial, you will not get it from me. You will not see pictures of my mundane breakfast, and you will not hear about my shitty day, unless it's relevant to my higher cause here. I will not let the algorithm make me unidimensional. That's where radical thinking comes from. You will see all aspects of me. The entrepreneur, the singer, the dancer, the mother, the oftentimes tantrum thrower, all of it. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And like I just suggested to you, I will try and spend more time offline and less time online. I take my fucking phone to the bathroom. There is absolutely no logical reason to do that. And as you can see, nature doesn't require a filter. It just requires us to follow it. My last thought on this is, while this may seem like the most overwhelming time of our times, and it probably is, between global pandemic, climate change crises, civil unrest in the United States, this is probably the best time to find an opportunity to renew in all this chaos. The universe is very precise. Maybe all these messages are coming to us at the same time because now we are primed to listen. Cheers. Can I just say that taking the pressure off posting constantly, I'm already feeling lighter and better.